things we're dealing with are threats to humanity unlike anything the world has ever seen before.
We can bequeath our children a greener planet and a more prosperous future.
That's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger.
If unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
Zero Carbon
East Talk.
Hello and welcome to Zero Carbonista Series 5, Adjust, Stop the Tories. I'm Ian Collins, and this is the UK's number one environment-based podcast. If it's green, it is in. And I'll tell you what, Dale Vince, there's a lot of green stuff in. Or, if you're the Labour Party, is it green stuff out? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, it does look like that, doesn't it? I mean, this was a really big week in that respect. It was yesterday, wasn't it, that the media spent all day speculating that Keir Starmer was going to abandon his 28 billion pledge to spend on green initiatives every year, like they've spent the last few weeks, actually. And I was on all kinds of media during the day saying, well, look, we're still speculating, come on. But at 5 o'clock, he announced it, actually, but he hasn't abandoned it. And I've been saying all day, look, you guys are fretting over whether it's being ditched or whether it's being nailed to the mast. And I think the truth is in the middle. He's saying, look, we're going to look and see what money we've got and spend what we can, which is entirely sensible. As it turns out, what he announced at 5 o'clock was exactly that. The Guardian said he'd halved it. Elsewhere, I could see that they said it had been reduced to 1/6 of what it was. I don't know what the real numbers are, but it is a dramatic reduction in not the ambition, but the kind of pledge to spend because of the economic downturn.
I mean, the critics of Labour say, well, hang on a second, they've been banging on about this 28 billion figure for a long time. They didn't need to really put a figure on it, and that's really what's bitten them in the butt. If they'd started off with a figure of 14 billion, half of that would have still been an impressive number, and nobody would have blinked.
That's true. But maybe that's with the benefit of hindsight, right? Because I think the 28 billion comes from the Climate Change Committee. They said a few years ago, this is the cost of getting to net zero by 2050, which is in law in our country and all that kind of stuff. And Labour, I think, simply adopted that because it's quite sensible, right? If that's what we have to spend, that's what we'll do. But I also agree that the 28 billion figure itself has become a burden. It's an arbitrary figure. It's detached for most people from reality. It doesn't have, I don't know, a lot of resonance or something. It's become its own problem, 28 billion.
You're still confident that the Labour Party will be green enough and ambitious enough, Dale, in all of the things that need attending to?
Well, look, it's like a football six-pointer. You know how they go in a relegation battle or a battle at the top even, when you play your rivals, and if you win and they lose, the difference, the swing is arguably 6 points. This is exactly the same as that, right? Labour could pledge 5 billion, 10 billion, whatever it is. But however far they go in that direction is going to be completely opposite to what the Tories are doing in the opposite direction. We're talking about 3 billion chucked at Rosebank, which is an uneconomic North Sea oil project. But anyway, it doesn't matter. All of the money they're chucking at fossil fuels, all of the subsidies, they're pulling in the wrong direction and it's wasted. And so, will Labour be greener than the Tories? That's a very low bar. And I think, in effect, there's a six-pointer going on here because Labour are pulling in one direction, Tories are pulling in the exact opposite direction. And we can't but fail to get a far greener government than we have now and actually that we've ever had.
What could be interesting after the election, the Tories are going to go either, what they normally do is go absolutely bonkers and start appointing like weird people into positions. And then they go, it didn't really work that, did it? So let's rethink. So they'll probably do that for a bit. But what could happen is they could eventually end up with quite a green Tory leader who kind of outgreens the Labour Party. I'm talking about a few years down the line.
Oh, you mean if they lose or after they?
Yeah, well, they are going to lose, aren't they? So after they've lost, they'll probably have this couple of years of turmoil where people talk seriously about bringing Liz Truss back. More of her in a few moments, and so that's the kind of sort of
sorry,
that's going on in their heads.
That sentence is crazy. People talk seriously about bringing Liz Truss back.
Right.
That doesn't work, right? That's an oxymoronic sentence.
Well, she had this press conference and people actually turned up to it. I mean, not many, but some actually did. But we'll come back to that in a second. But there is the possibility that the kind of David Cameron moment, but someone who actually means it, could suddenly pitch up on the blue benches and kind of out green Starmer. I mean, which I'm sure you'd encourage in a curious way.
It reminds me of that old kind of concept that if you stick a monkey in front of a typewriter and you wait enough millions of years, he'll write a Shakespearean type novel. I think we're into that realm of territory. When did we last have a serious Tory leader, that's serious about anything except self-promotion and their own career? I don't know. But I think what's more likely, actually, is that the Tories will go hard right, not green at all, but the very opposite, more of the opposite than they already are. And I think Reform UK are actually hoping to inhabit the dead skin of the Tory party after the election and, put that on and become the new Tory party. They're super hard right. I mean, their mission is to destroy the Conservative Party. I like that so much, I'm thinking of funding them. I'm serious too.
I can't laugh too loud because I've had this man flu thing going on. If I start to laugh, I start to cough, and then it doesn't stop. And we'd be here for the next 30 minutes. But yeah, I quite like that idea. The dream team, Richard Tice and Dale Vince.
Come on. I say vote for these f***ers because then we'll get a Labour government.
Well, he likes you because I think, didn't you come on my programme debating with him once?
Oh, that's true, yeah. Did. And, he wasn't a bad guy to talk to.
No, he's a lovely guy. Richard's a lovely bloke. But, you
Same as Farage, right?
There's the issue with politics, isn't it? You go, some people you bump into, whether they're the left or the right, somewhere in the middle, you think, I want to hate these bastards. And then you go, actually, they're all right.
Whereas Rishi Sunak, I don't like the look of him. I've never spoken to him. But what he did in Parliament this week, that transphobic joke in the presence of the mother of that murdered teenager, I thought that was beyond the pale. And worse than that, I saw afterwards his interviews in which he justified it. And twice he was allowed to say this, and the interviewer didn't challenge him. He said he was merely making a point that Keir Starmer has a series of U-turns, about 30 of them, and he listed about 5 of them. And he was making a point that he doesn't have a plan. He said it twice. But what should have been thrown back to him was this. If you have a list of 30 things, 30 examples of U-turns, you do not need to punctuate it with a transphobic joke in front of the mother of a murdered teenager.
His point was, just to do my sort of put my Newsnight
balance down.
So the theory goes that this is a constant thing the Prime Minister has jibed Keir Starmer over, that he can't define what a woman is. So that's the thrust of it.
But that wasn't required when the mother of the murdered trans teenager is in the house, and he knew it. That wasn't required to make the U-turn point. He was making a U-turn point.
Indeed.
He says,
yeah. As it turned out, she'd actually wasn't in there at that moment, but he didn't know that. That's the point. And I reckon what had happened, Dale, is his advisors, and this is where it goes so wrong in politics, his advisors had gone, whatever you do, Rishi, you've got to get the line in about Keir doesn't know how to define a word. You've got to get that in. And he was so obsessed with getting it in, he forgot everything else around him. And he can't say he didn't know that the girl's mother was there, because at the very beginning of Prime Minister's Question Time, Keir Starmer announced that she was there. And he made a point of saying that she was there. So I know, look, there's an argument that says politicians should not have to hold back because of who's sitting in a public gallery. But ordinarily, I would get that. But I think there is such a thing as subtlety and decorum.
I don't accept any of that. If he had been told she was in the house, he did not need to make that transphobic joke. He didn't need to do it. And yeah, politicians shouldn't hold back according to the audience, but there is no place for transphobia. There is no place for racism. He didn't make a racist joke, did he?
But he's saying it's not transphobia. He's saying he's just pointing out that Keir Starmer doesn't know what a woman is.
He made a joke of the issue. I mean, it's transphobic.
Yeah, he wanted a laugh. That you're absolutely right. Yeah. That's what he was hoping, and he got his laugh from the titters on the back benches.
And then he didn't apologise, and he wouldn't apologise, and instead he tried to brass it out and claim he was making a political point about U-turns. Well, he wasn't, right? He just wasn't. He could have made his U-turn point, and he did, without punctuating it with a transphobic joke.
Well, as my old nan used to say about Rishi Sunak, what a
I had that exactly in my head as you said it.
What? Again, I can't laugh. I will cough.
And splutter all over the mic.
Indeed. Another big story this week, Dale. World's first year-long breach of the key 1.5 Celsius warming limit. I mean, this was a huge story. It should have got, frankly, more press than it did.
What can I say? It's like just another record. We're breaking records left, right, and centre. And this one is a year-long, 1.5 degree. That's the Paris threshold. Apparently, it doesn't quite breach the Paris threshold because that is a multi-year target. So 1 year is not enough to worry about. I don't think anybody says that. Or maybe Rishi Sunak says that. I mean, there's a lot to worry about, right? We hit 1.5 degrees as an event at all about 10 years earlier than climate scientists first thought. I mean, that was just last year. Yeah. And this year is forecast to be the hottest year ever. Last year already was, so that's like 2 in a row. The world is cooking. And people like Rishi Sunak are saying, we need to drill for more oil and gas. We need to dig for coal. I mean, WTF is going on?
Well, I think the clue was in the two words Rishi Sunak.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, God.
Back to Manan. That's all I can say.
Back to, yeah. And what is he doing there? Right? What's he doing leading our country? We didn't vote for him. The Tories didn't even vote for him.
I think he knows this stuff, though. I genuinely think he's an intelligent bloke, sort of law-abiding, family guy. He doesn't drink. I know he came from the banking kind of thing. I think he knows all this stuff, but he's been seduced into taking a certain line because his advisors and his handlers have said that is your best chance of reducing the Labour damage at the next election.
I think he's an idiot in that case, if that's true. I think the job for him is just like for Cameron, it's just a tick in the CV box. You know, I mean, I was once Prime Minister of the UK. You know, he's going to live in America. This fella, he had a green card before he became our Prime Minister, true. Which means he's pledged to go and live in America. He doesn't want to be here. He's here for the glory of being in number 10, and he'd like to extend it a little longer. We need to get him the out of there as soon as possible. Sorry, I'm swearing in this episode. I've got a bit of frustration, you know. But he's running away from the polls. He won't call an election. We're in stasis. He's doing incredible damage to our country in the meantime, and he doesn't even want to be here.
And on the plus side?
There's not one, except he can only run for so long. By the end of this year, he has to call an election.
And he'll be gone. Here's a question from Paula. It says, Dale, we'll be interested to hear your opinion on the recent French farmers' protests. I lived in France for 10 years and admired the way they protected their way of life. However, I understand that the French government's intention is to reduce carbon emissions, and of course that impacts on livestock farmers. But what are your views on the French government's intentions? And of course, this isn't just France. There's quite a lot of other countries, not just about, there's lots of other debates and they differ from country to country, but there is, it seems, a little bit of a body of evidence that farmers are taking a hit in order for countries to hit net zero.
Well, you could say that oil companies are taking a hit in order for countries to reach net zero, except they're not yet, but they're in the crosshairs, right? We have to stop oil and gas. So, I mean, this is where I basically come from. If it's livestock farming, we have to stop it. And we have to start by reducing it. And I think one of the other countries you might have had in mind is Holland, where they've declared they're going to have a 30% reduction in livestock in order to get their carbon footprint down. I mean, I think that's brilliant. And I don't know exactly what's happening in France in terms of targets, but reducing livestock farming is just perfectly logical because it's livestock farming that's driving the climate crisis.
But of course, the farmers would say, well, hang on a second. Yeah, well, even if that is right, this is our livelihood. Yeah. What do we do?
Grow something else. Grow plants, because we still need to eat. We just have to eat something different.
Justin says, do you regret not sticking with the Green Party now that Starmer has U-turned?
Sorry. Okay, I'm tickled.
You should just laugh for half an hour.
Maybe I should. It'd probably make me feel better. Well, ranting can help me feel better too, but laughing I'm feeling all good now that I've had a good laugh. Look, I'm laughing because I've never abandoned the Green Party. I mean, you know, it's full of people who I either know or agree with anyway, but, you know, are friends of mine. And I like what they stand for and all that kind of stuff, but they can never form the government. Keir Starmer still can, and I think still will. And no, I mean, I haven't abandoned them and I regret nothing. And as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing is that we have a Labour government. Then we have the chance to get a Green government. We have no chance otherwise.
We haven't done this for a little while, Dale. It's a bit of what was it called? Right-wing?
Right-wing nuts. The right-wing nuts, innit?
I'm just going to say right-wing watch.
That sounds like a combo with Birdwatch.
It does, doesn't it? Where's Chris Packham when we need him? Anyway, right-wing nut, Liz Truss.
Sorry, I'm in full on laughing mode now. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to stop.
I'm trying not to laugh.
Oh, that's like being at school when you daren't laugh, and that makes you want to laugh so much more, right?
Indeed, yes. And then, of course, the teacher also, what we didn't realise as kids, the teacher knows, and they're loving every bit of it.
Bit of S&M from the teacher. Let's talk about the lettuce anyway. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Liz Truss is offering lessons on how to be popular, apparently.
Yeah, I saw some of her clips, and honestly, it was like, talk about denial. She said, actually, lots of people are supporters of the Conservatives. They just won't admit it. Like, come on, what are you saying? What are you saying? Voters are in denial. I mean, it's just brilliant. The Tories often say this, it's not that we've got the wrong policies, it's just that we're not communicating them properly. Liz Truss's policies tanked the pound, almost crushed our economy, and she got ejected from office in about a month, costing the whole country £30 billion. International money markets turned their backs on the UK because of her policies. There was no communication problem here.
It's kind of strange, isn't it, that if you'd lasted 44 days as Prime Minister, and you don't need a PhD in politics to know that that's a bit shit,
Yes.
plus crash the economy in just 44 days, you might just not go out in public for a couple of years, let alone mobilise a press conference alongside Rees-Mogg, Lee Anderson and others, asking for a return to the very values that it up in the first place.
Yeah. And Lee Anderson, did you see what he said? It was like a comedy show. He was up on stage and he was musing about the fact that fossil fuels are made from plants. And it's like, he asked the audience, that's right, isn't it? And somebody must have said, yes. He said, I thought it was. And they may be millions of years old, but they're made of plants. So when we burn them, they're carbon neutral. That's sustainable, isn't it? He said.
So he was kind of asking this as almost a question as well as a statement.
Yeah, as if he was like discovering some new truth while he was at the lectern. I mean, it's obviously not a new truth. The idea that fossil fuels are sustainable, the whole problem, and everybody knows this, I'm pretty sure, is that we're burning fossil reserves, carbon reserves in effect, that were locked up millions and millions of years ago. And so we're creating an abnormal amount of carbon in the atmosphere. There's nothing sustainable about fossil fuels, but he said it was at the launch of this thing called PopCon.
I mean, by the way, if you wanted any evidence of like stupidity, just didn't anybody around the table go, this might kind of fail on a number of levels? Apart from it sounds like popcorn, other than that, the word con is emphasized. The word pop just sounds a little bit like something your gran might say. I mean, it's just wrong on every level, right?
It's just weird. Just weird, absolutely. Just weird. And it says here that Nigel Farage was a star guest of the launch, and he dismissed the group and said Sunak would completely ignore them.
They got a little Faragean for it.
What kind of star guest dismisses the group that he's
That's right.
star
Yeah, they
guest
said,
of?
well, hey, star guest, what did you think of it? Well, I thought it was a crock of old shit, frankly. They're all rubbish. They're all going to lose. Final question from Hayley, who says, should prime ministers really be making £1,000 bets about deporting people? Sunak is so inhumane, says Hayley. This was a Piers Morgan interview that he did, where Morgan got him in a classic kind of Morgan pincer movement, which resulted in Sunak pretty much having to take a bet on whether he'd be deporting people to Rwanda.
Yeah. What a muppet, right? It just shows how out of touch he is he has no notion of what it's like to be that kind of immigrant, right? His family are immigrants for sure. Same as Braverman and what's her name? Am I Bad Enough? Yeah, Kemi Badenoch or whatever it is. They're all in families of immigrants, and they are so hard and aggressive towards immigrants. I don't think they understand what it feels like to actually be on the run from the country that you came from, and especially to cross the English Channel in small boats and stuff. These people are bastards to immigrants. And here he is. Yeah, I'll bet you £1,000 that I do send some of these really unfortunate people to a country with a terrible human rights record in Rwanda, right? I mean, what can you say?
I mean, half an hour ago, if you'd said someone was going to go to Rwanda, you'd go, serious? Rwanda? Of all places? I mean, they killed half their own people in the course of our lifetime. And Lord knows what else is going on there. This is not a free and safe place to be monkeying around in.
And in the height of the tense negotiations around the Rwandan deal, that Rishi Sunak brought a version back to the Commons and said, this is the best I can get, because Rwanda says any more than that breaches international law.
Yeah.
Obviously implying we were willing to breach international law, but Rwanda was the handbrake on that.
I like this, that the Rwandans are going, sorry, you Tories have gone way too far on this. Yeah, we can't be breaching these kind of basic ethical guidelines.
Yeah, God.
Dale, that is it for this episode, but we will speak in a week.
Nice one. Looking forward to it already.
Don't forget, you can, of course, me too. Don't forget to follow this podcast. Then you get each episode automatically. And really important, follow Dale on social media, twitter.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.
Zero carbon.
East of.